Tomorrow is the 15th of February, and we're going into voting for the incoming chairperson of the AUC. All right. As we get into a conversation this morning, the 15th of August is of February, is a date that people have been talking about since August last year, or even before that, when we said, okay, fine. The heads of states will converge in Addis Ababa and they will take a vote on who the next person will be. The chairperson of the AUC will take over from Chairperson Faki. Now, Honorable Albino Aboug is a South Sudanese diplomat and parliamentarian, and he is our guest this hour as we look into Raila's prospects for the AUC. Honorable Aboug, good morning.
Good morning to you.
Karibu Sana. Good to have you in the hot seat of the Situation Room this morning, looking at an interesting topic because tomorrow, exactly like we said, that vote will be cast. But before we do that, being African, let's look at today's proverb, which CT will share with you, and then you can interpret that for us, right?
Yes, our proverbs for the whole of this week have been from the Gambia, the Republic of the Gambia. He who weeps in the morning knows what makes him weep. Who? Yes, he who weeps in the morning.
Oh, wow.
In the morning knows what makes him weep. Oh, that morning.
Oh, morning. It was something.
My interpretation to that, it means that a person experience a pain is aware about what caused him the pain.
You put it very beautifully, very simply, and very good.
In another way, it means that the pain does not occur without a reason, and those who feel the pain understand the source of the pain, even if it is others does not.
The wearer of the shoe is one who knows where it pinches.
Absolutely.
All right. Okay.
Yes.
I mean, very clear. The African Union Commission will have a new chairperson from the end of tomorrow, after the heads of state converge in Addis Ababa to take the vote. It is not the first time, obviously, because there's a chairperson now who's outgoing, but it seems that it's taken, and it's actually not the first time that Kenya has put somebody up for this particular vote. But this one seems to be very different because it's in the person of Raila Odinga, from the Kenyan perspective, who is going to, who is one of the candidates. And it seems like it's a hotly contested battle at this point in terms of who will come out on top. Give us your overview of what you see as somebody who is quite involved in the matters of this region, and what you feel will come out of all of this.
Thank you very much, Honorable Albino Aboug from South Sudan. I've been in the AU as a special envoy of the African Union for 11 years, so I know the system very well.
Yeah.
What I can say, this time the elections are different. You have to divide the African Union into 5 regions: Northern Africa, Southern Africa, Eastern Africa, Western Africa, and Central. This time it is based on the rotations, and the rotation is based here in Eastern Africa region. So based on the numbers, and as somebody who have been engaged and doing a lot of follow-up, I believe Raila have a chance comparing to the others competitor in terms of numbers, because we have 14 countries, the 4 islands. You have Comoros, Seychelles, Madagascar, Mauritius, and I think there is one candidate from one of the islands.
Yes, Madagascar.
So, Sheikhs, maybe you are likely to have maybe 1 island or 2 islands. I can't talk about it here, because it is not an open. I'm likely to vote for Raila. And then you have South Sudan, Uganda, Rwanda, Tanzania, and Eritrea and Ethiopia. I believe they are also on their way to vote for Odinga. But nevertheless, the election are won on the day of the election.
Of the vote.
So Djibouti also is a very strong candidate due to the commitment of the Arab leagues and the other Islamic states who have committed to vote for him. But at the end, it is all about the numbers. Lastly,
let me ask this question. Djibouti is a French enclave. If the Arab League, as you say, support this candidacy, would you then say that the Francophone countries, and France in particular, would also support this candidacy?
you might be right, but France as a country are not favorite at this particular time in the continent of Africa. Let us go to West Africa, where you have about 4 countries, 5, and that is good for Mr. Odinga. If those countries would have been allowed to vote and they were on the France side, that would have been a very serious problem to Mr. Odinga. You have Mali, Guinea-Conakry, Niger, Burkina Faso, and Gabon. All these are French-speaking, but they are not going to vote.
They're not going to vote?
They will not, because they have sanctions due to the coup in their countries.
You know, the thing is, and you're quite correct, that the 6 countries do actually also bring down the threshold of how many votes you need to win. But the question is, Olusegun Obasanjo has been campaigning for Raila, we assume, in West Africa. For a long time, we were sure that Cyril Ramaphosa, being a private friend of Mr. Odinga, would definitely be on his side. Tanzania has oftentimes gone the SADC route versus supporting Kenya. SADC has declared that they go for the Madagascar guy. And then you've got Tshisekedi and the issue around the Eastern Congo and the Rwanda cycle. How are those balances going to happen now, taking in SADC, Congo, and now...
I have been involved myself more than Obasanjo in the election of Mr. Odinga. So I met with His Excellency, the President of DRC. He might have an issues with the country of Kenya, but he's a personal friend to Mr. Odinga.
Yes.
Yes, the SADC might have made a decision based on the interest. Likewise, the Arab League also have made a decision. But at the end, it is about the country to make the decision. And it is a secret ballot. So during the time of the election, there are a lot of freedom of speech.
Is it secret or is it secret?
I don't know.
Secret.
You can interpret it the way you want.
So if Tshisekedi, for example, is on the side of Mr. Odinga, where does that put one Mr. Kagame and the other one Mr. Yoweri Kaguta Museveni?
Museveni and was here in the December last year.
Yes.
To attend the event of Mr. Odinga, and I believe His Excellency President William Ruto also was in the Law Nyanza. Last week I was in actually 6 days ago, I went to meet with His Excellency Museveni, and he told me in person he will vote for Odinga. And he will even campaign. So I don't see any issue.
Okay. I have to ask the question because we talk about it being a game of numbers, but at the same time, looking at a position whereby if you want to compare with what is happening in Europe at the moment, where there's a lot of call for nationalism, renewed force of nationalism, and if you want to look at the United States, who've just come out of an election and have put in office another man again who is fighting for nationalism, we've come to the place where Africa is also going back to the place where they say there must be some kind of African unity. We must then get to the place where Africa must rise and get Africa great again. How does this then influence how people will vote as per who will sit at the position of African unity when we're trying to bring countries again together? Because we can talk about numbers and we can talk about, friends. Olusegun Obasanjo doing the rounds, Ambassador Aboug doing the rounds. We can talk about Cyril Ramaphosa being a good friend of Raila Odinga, or we can talk about Mr. Mohammed and his support that he gets from the Arab League, or support that he gets from the Islamic League. How does the Africanness, the Pan-Africanism of Africa then contribute to how nation heads will vote for whom they want to bring countries together?
I do agree with you, but it is about the nation interest.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm a southern Sudanese leader, why do I have to vote for a country of Kenya? What is my interest?
Absolutely.
So in this region, in Eastern Africa, as a region, we have 14 countries. So Sudan will look into their own interests. Ethiopia will look into their own interests. They will examine the relationship between Kenya and Somalia, Djibouti and Somalia, South Sudan and Kenya, Uganda and Kenya. You talk about the issue of Pan-Africanism. Pan-Africanism was a very strong term in 60s and 70s and 80s. But I don't think in this 21st century is actually quite active like the way we are expecting.
There are calls to bring it back, though. There are calls to bring it back.
Then let's see
Yeah.
in this election if the issue of Pan-Africanism is working, as it has been said, then the right person to win will be Mr. Raila Odinga, comparing to the other candidate.
You don't have to ask this question. The chair of the AUC has existed since, I think, the year 2002. Now, the candidates have been there, but have we ever seen the amount of attention being given to this candidacy as we've seen now?
No.
Yes. Now,
It is because African Union is getting more interesting. Time with the time. The Africans start to have a lot of voice. And we have a subcontinent organization. In Eastern Africa, we have the IGAD.
Yes.
And in Southern Africa, we have SADC. And in Northern Africa, we have the Maghreb. In Western Africa, we have the ECOWAS. In Central, we have the SADC. The community of Central Africa. COMESA. So in this region, in a different region, North, South, East, West, and Central, there is a lot of involvements about the resources which are involved in this continent, especially raw material. So there is a competition internationally. So Africa is getting more interesting regionally, continentally, and internationally. And that's why the competition of the position of the African Union is getting very interesting.
From what you say, the international interest on the continent has not even increased, it's hyped.
Yes.
So which means
Yes.
the international interest would have an interest in who becomes the AUC chair, would they not?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and aren't they the biggest, one of the biggest funders outside of the African
Ironically,
countries
yes.
themselves?
Yes, but during the vote, they don't vote.
No, they don't.
Yes.
But this is Africa, and the votes are counted even before they are cast.
In national elections, there are foreign countries who don't vote in national elections in Africa, but are heavily influential of certain processes that take place. It's not far from the African Union either.
Let us start with Southern Africa region. We have 10 countries.
Yes.
You have Angola, South Africa, Eswatini, Zambia, Malawi,
Lesotho.
Zambia, Lesotho, Mozambique, Zimbabwe, and Botswana.
Tanzania.
Tanzania is in the east.
It's in East.
But they are a member of
It's
SADC.
They are a member of SADC.
They are.
Yes,
But
they're in East Africa.
But they are not.
But they are in East Africa.
They are in East Africa.
Yeah, true. I'm just saying, in terms of this particular vote, Tanzania could be counted on that side.
Why?
This is how it works. Tanzania has a country. They are in Eastern Africa, but they are a member of the SADC.
Yes.
DRC are a member of the SADC, but they are also a member of the East African.
Yes.
You have Burundi. They are in Central Africa region, but they are a member of the East African community.
Yes.
So during the AU voting system, Burundi and DRC will vote in the central. South Africa and the others will vote in the south. But they have this organization which put them together, the SADCs, who are non-members of the Southern Africa region, but they have been invited to be the members, like the way DRC have been invited to become a member of the East African community. So at the last, it depends about the policy of the country. Where do you feel to have your own interests? So Kenya have to actually exempt their relationship with DRC, Kenya relationship with Burundi, Kenya relationship with Tanzania, Kenya relationship with Uganda, Kenya relationship with Somalia, all the neighbors. This is how it works.
Okay. But then I have to ask the question. I'm piggybacking on the question asked earlier on. Yes, the relationship with the country, but the country doesn't relate to another country. The people who lead the country relate to leaders of their neighboring countries. I prefaced my earlier statement about personalities. When you have a personality that is as known as the current Kenyan candidate for the AUC chair, the person that he is that a contributing factor to whether he can get elected or not elected? Because this is a strong personality.
It plays two sides. Raila might have friends, it might also have an enemies.
You will have enemies if you are that powerful.
Yes. So if the time is now, I believe Raila as a person will contribute to his candidature as a candidate,
Yes.
and also to Kenya as a country. For example, Raila have a very good relationship with the president of DRC. He told me in person how he have helped him. I cannot talk about it here, and he know. And I even came and I told him this is what I was told. He said, yes, it is true. His relationship with the president of Ivory Coast, when he had a problem and he was sent here as a special envoy, him and the former president of Nigeria, Goodluck Jonathan, how they were able to sort out the problem of
Ivory Coast.
Into that, his relationship in Ghana, his relationship in Nigeria, South Africa, and some of the other countries. That will help. But you need a strong support from your own country.
Yes.
So that if you combine the two, it can turn out to be negative or positive based on your personality.
We're taking very serious numbers to Addis Ababa.
in terms of support.
In terms of support. Some of they can't vote.
Yeah.
But just to show that we support.
Yes.
If we look at the role of the AUC chair, I think that should... You got it, yeah? If we look at the role of the AUC chair, and one of the main items that we're looking at now is essentially the image of Africa on the international stage as a whole. Taking the African Union and presenting it on the international scale, lobbying, pushing for space, essentially scrimmaging for space on the international scene, representing the day-to-day activities of the commission. Those things happen. But then when we're looking at as a chair, as somebody who now serves in that representative role, it's collective in nature, right? So it's taking Africa as a whole, doesn't take the individual countries as a whole. So what I'm trying to understand then is how any country who decides who the chairperson will be, when they look at the overall role, how does that affect their countries as an individual country, dependent on how they would give their vote?
Well, it depends. It depends of how do you want actually to interpret into it. African Union of today is not the African Union of
yesteryears,
several years back, due to what you have just said. So I will not dwell on it too much.
There's the subject of now the role of the chair on the continent. There's what we read and there's what you know, because this is something you understand well. Why is it that this role exists, and why is it important?
It is important because of the personality who are involved. For example, in Kenya, there are people who believe Raila Odinga should be here to do politics. In the continent, there are people who believe also Raila should be here to concentrate because of his age and do some other things as an elder. But also in the region, there are people who believe Raila can contribute to the issue of Pan-Africanism. You have just talked about it.
Yeah.
But also in this country, there are people who believe Raila can contribute not only in the region, not only the continent, and also the international community. He will be a different chair of the African Union. Remember, those who have came before as the chair of the African Union, where they came from as a Minister of Foreign Affairs or something like this. But Raila he will be the first Prime Minister to be the chair of the African Union if he wins tomorrow.
Wins. Okay, we're having a conversation with the Honourable Albino Aboug, and we're talking about, all right, so tomorrow it goes to the vote, and heads of state will converge in Addis Ababa to then take that vote and see who will be the next chair of the AUC. The 15th of February is the date tomorrow, and that is when the AUC chairperson will be selected by vote of the African heads of state. Raila Odinga is one of those candidates, and joining us in the studio this hour is Honourable Aboug Albino, who is talking to us about, some of those issues. And some of these issues take into consideration, when we talk about the vote, some of the issues that are taken into consideration are the things that are going on the continent at the current time. The conflict in DRC, in Eastern DRC, the stability of other nations, South Sudan being one of them, and we look at the conflict that goes on there, and who would then be able to connect the dots. And we can go into that South Sudan conflict area for a bit, because there has been conflict in South Sudan for a very long time. It has been said that the world has ignored this conflict and has focused on other conflict areas like the Ukraine and Russia incident that has focused primarily on the Israel and Palestine. But here we are saying that there is a war, there is a conflict here that is affecting many more people in a more severe manner than anybody is paying attention to. Is this a connector point, for example, for the person who would come into that seat of the AU to then be able to say, look, we have to look for these solutions for those that are affecting us as Africans?
Thank you very much. In regard to South Sudan, as a Southern Sudanese, we need to put our house in order. And not only in South Sudan, our neighbor also, Sudan, Khartoum. There is a lot of fighting ongoing. It has intensified for the last 2 to 3 weeks in Sudan. And this is the different opinion from two generals, General Burhan and General Amati. And the war has been going on now for almost a year. People who are dying in Sudan are more than people who are dying in Ukraine. People who are dying in Sudan are more than people who are dying in Gaza. But nobody talk about it. That is something we can talk about it another day. I don't think the African Union, the incoming chair of the African Union, he will be in a better position to address the issues. But the responsibility of each region was in a sub-region in the continent of the African Union. If there is a problem, for example, in South Africa, that have to be handled by the SADCs.
Yes.
And if there is a problem in Mali, it have to be handled by the ECOWAS. And if there is a problem in South Sudan, it have to be handled by IGAD. So far, if the IGAD cannot handle the issue of Sudan and South Sudan and other countries, Somalia, then you have to transfer it to the African Union. And this is where now the chair of the African Union can come in. So by the time you transfer the case from the region to the continent, it takes a lot of time.
Right.
And you will have a lot of victims between. So we have to change that system. We have to change that system. I believe if I have an opportunity to advise our leaders, they have to change that system so that they can address the issues instead of going through what we call it a subcontinent, because it delays the process and a lot of people are dying in the middle. One of the issues which are also affecting a lot of people in the continent of Africa is our election system are still far behind. So if I disagree with you, I am in the opposition and I have no place. I don't see myself winning any election. Whoever is in charge will use the necessary force to we have seen it in some of the countries here, in whether it is in South Sudan, whether in some other countries I cannot mention. Yeah, you will use to take care of your own opponent.
Yeah.
Right.
Believe. Yes.
I mean, there have been, sorry, Emma, just because I want to segue just a little bit, because if we look at, if we local, a conflict is localized, however, the effects of a conflict then spread way beyond that geographical area. And if we're looking at Africa as a whole and say that, so who needs to be taking responsibility? Here we are saying that there are regional bodies, right? And then there are, there is a continental body in the African Union that should handle some of these things at the very minimum. And that's why we've heard a lot of the things that have come out, for example, like Toothless Organization, an organization that is mostly funded by external parties. So, of course, if the person who is funding the union to a large extent, essentially is going to call the shots. Do you think that the folks who are funding the African Union, for example, are interested in Africa being a strong force? They're not interested in that. So what needs to happen in order for the African Union to actually take this bull by the horns and be able to, why should we be lamenting that the world is not paying attention to an African conflict when we have an African body in place that's supposed to be doing 1, 2, 3, but it's barely scratching the surface at 1?
Remember, as an NGO within the structure of the regions, you have the member of the state, for example, whether it is East African Community or IGAD. And these members of the state, they have a right to determine what can be done and what should not be done. So it is not up on the citizen to have an open opinion about what direction they want to take in life. Therefore, it becomes very, very, very extremely difficult to give an honest opinion of how things can actually move within the structure of the organization in our continent or in our region. For example, there are issues in my countries, in South Sudan, and there are issues in Sudan. There are also issues here in Kenya. And there are also other issues in different parts, some in the island and others. But a head of the state, the representative of the country, will say, no, you should not interfere in our own internal affairs. What can you do? Are you going to go for a civil war? No. So we still have a long way to go. We have to put our house in order for us to address the issues which are affecting us in our continent.
There's an issue that isn't discussed much when we're talking about the AUC chair. That is the position of the vice chair. This particular season of elections, that particular position is going to North Africa. And there are two contenders. Egypt, Algeria. My question is this. The horse trading that takes place in any election, does the election of an individual from these two countries for that particular position also play a part in the election of the chair of the AUC?
Yes, it is. The two countries you have just mentioned, they have a candidate. And they are all women. And they are very powerful countries in the continent and also in their
region,
respective regions. So in the real sense, if I was in a better place, I would choose between Egypt and Algeria. Algeria have more force in the region, but Algeria also can have a negative side due to their problem with Morocco.
Yeah.
So in the real sense, but if you get Algeria, it is easily and likely you will get Western Sahara, Tunisia, Libya, and Mauritania.
If you get Morocco.
If you get Algeria.
If you get Algeria.
Yes. So Algeria come with something.
They come bearing gifts.
Yes. I don't know what come with Egypt.
The Nile. The Nile.
Halfway to Europe.
Just a quick question, and perhaps to follow up on CT's question. Where does the balance of religion come in? There's regional balance for sure, because, for example, the vice chairperson position has been segmented for the north. Now I'm just thinking, in the event that Djibouti wins and let's say Algeria wins, would that be taken as a pro-Islamic position, or will the balance of trying to find a Christian and a Muslim to deputize also play into the horse trading that will happen?
Is it religion or geography?
No, we already established geography. That's why I'm asking about religion.
Well, your question, it is good, but it is a little bit...
It's political.
It's political.
Yes.
We are dealing with the democratization of the election in the continent.
Sure.
Yes.
I will give you a very good example about a country of Nigeria.
Yes.
In Nigeria, you're supposed to have a Muslim
And a Christian.
and a Christian.
Or north and south.
Yeah. North and south, or north and central.
Because you can have a Muslim from the south.
You can have the Muslim from the south.
Absolutely.
And you can have the Muslim from the south also.
Absolutely. So it's north and
you
south.
can have the Christian
from the north.
from the north.
Yeah.
And I will give you a very good example now. In Nigeria, it is a Muslim at the current time.
Exactly.
So you might be right, but in terms of the democratization, it is right. So if the gentleman from Djibouti or the other gentleman from Madagascar, it could be a Hindus or
Absolutely.
or a Roman Catholic.
Yeah, because I know for a fact that there's a lot of horse trading and that will happen, especially if there's more than one round, correct?
Yes, but religion is not a big deal.
No, I'm asking now about the rounds.
Yes.
And the horse trading, because let's say none of these three qualify in the first round. What sequentially happens after that?
They are giving 6 months or 90 days. They'll come back again
And figure it out.
and figure it out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the current share will continue.
And then is
And
it
that
all?
happened with Madame Zuma.
Yeah. And is it all three that are going to go into the second round, or is it
It will be the
Process
first
of
and second.
elimination.
first and second?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that in that scenario that plays into Raila's hands, if I do my math correctly.
I think it play into Raila's hand now instead of waiting more.
So we don't want a second round.
Actually, let me ask the question.
Yeah.
This is a playing field that you're very familiar with. Why would you say that it's playing into his hands now?
Because checking the numbers, let us go country by country.
Yes, please.
Let us start with West Africa, for example. A country which are probability to vote for Raila Odinga. You have Gambia, which has said it very openly they will vote for Ghana. You have Ghana. They say they will vote for Raila. You have Ivory Coast. they say they'll vote for Ghana, for Kenya. And then you have the other two countries, Liberia and Sierra Leone. These are 5 countries. And Nigeria. I haven't heard, but the president has promised. The president is the president, because he will be the one to vote. So if you have 6 countries, then you are left with a few countries, like Benin, Senegal, Cameroon is in the central. We are talking about the west. Yes.
You know, in my head, Cameroon is in the west.
Well, in the map too.
It is in the ECAS. These are the organization of ECAS, which is Central Africa region. So in this, you will have 6 or 7 countries in Western Africa voting for Raila Odinga. If you postpone the election for another 90 days, you don't know what will happen in the middle. Then you come now to Eastern Africa as our region.
Yes.
You compare the 3 candidates. He takes Comoros Island, for example, and
Seychelles?
No, Mauritius. I'll talk about what I know. What I don't know, I'll talk about it.
Yes.
So, and then you come to South Sudan, Uganda, Rwanda, Tanzania, Eritrea, and Ethiopia.
Yes.
Then you have 8 countries out of 13. So, still, Mr. Odinga still have the numbers in the East, comparing to any candidate. Then let us go to North Africa. We might have 0 now, but probability of Raila might win because Algerians are not happy with France. And it is perceived the candidate of Djibouti is an ally to the country of France.
Right.
So then you have Algeria can bring in Western Sahara, and it can bring in Mauritania. And Libya and Tunisia.
So it sounds like a game of chess here.
It is a game of chess.
Yeah.
Yes.
That you have to
and
make
all
the right
these
move.
things can change at last minute. You
Right.
don't know. Also, you don't know what is the deal between Egypt and Kenya, because the election are held for the chair. So whoever will win the chair, you will now say, I have voted for you, so it is my turn. So please vote for me. So the numbers, I cannot say this particular A and B in the north. Let us come to the central. Central, we have Cameroons, Equatorial Guinea, and Gabon, but they are not voting because of the sanction. Then you have Chad, and you have Central African Republic, and you have the 2 Congo, and Burundi. And there is another island called Sao Tome and Principe. So you have 8 countries in Central Africa region. So in this case, you are likely to have, I will still say DRC will vote for Kenya due to the friendship. So you have 2 plus Burundi and Central Africa, and the president of Equatorial Guinea is a personal friend to Mr. Odinga. So you have
This man has many friends on this continent.
Yes. So you have 5 countries out of 8 likely to vote for him. So check all the numbers. You're talking about between 29 and 32, and that's what you need out of the current number 54 minus 6. So you're talking 48. So he has the numbers, but the elections are won
After the votes have
been called.
Have actually been
So
counted.
I cannot say it is A and B.
Well, so tomorrow, then, essentially, will tell us one way or another where it's going to be, bang on the first round, and everybody will know what exactly is happening, or whether you're going to the second or third, whatever the case may be. But I think there's a bigger case here crying for essentially what will happen with the continent then moving forward, regardless of whoever takes over. Does this present an opportunity to get African leadership, really? Like you said, we have to get our house in order as a continent. So whoever is going to come into play, where do you see as their biggest responsibility of the blocs as they get into this position?
I don't think it will change so much whether Raila is elected or Raila is not elected, because we have to change the mindset in the continent. If you don't take care of your own citizen, then nobody will take care of your own citizen, and the citizens are going to be left behind. And if you left the citizen behind, then you have no respect, whether it is region or an international. So, and that's why in Europe, all these leaders work so hard to take care of their own citizens. So we have to actually set up the system which is fair for everybody, so that those who are in the opposition will have an opportunity to talk. Those who are in the government will also have an opportunity to talk. But if it is based on the limitations, then we have a long way to go in the continent of Africa. And that's what we are facing. We're still having even a coups in the continent.
True.
So you have 5 coups, 6 coups in the continent. Sudan.
Conflicts.
Conflicts.
DRC, conflicts.
Conflict in South Sudan, conflicts in Sudan, conflicts in Mali, Niger, and Libya, and so on.
So there's still a lot of work to do.
We
on the
still
ground.
have a lot to do, but it is based if we can set up a proper constitution which hold everybody accountable.
And hopefully that will be the thrust of the conversations moving forward. We want to thank you for sharing your insights with us this morning. The Honourable Albino Aboug has been our guest this hour, South Sudanese diplomat as well as a parliamentarian, sharing insights. It's going to wait and see position that we are in for tomorrow, the 15th of February, when African heads of state will converge to cast their vote for the incoming AUC chair. So we're all, waiting with bated breath to see what happens. But the core is to see that Africa actually gets its house in order and starts to sort some things out as concerns the original idea for African unity. All right.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.